It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Well, hello there. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? Thank you for joining us. We have got Jen Sugermeyer here, and we have got Zahyia Rolle here. 2 interviews. First one up is Jen. Jen is an author, amongst many other things that she's done in her life. Her new book is called Reset, 5 Steps to Reclaim the Life You Thought You Lost and Learn to Love Yourself. We get into a great conversation about all kinds of stuff, about life and about people who do things that they probably shouldn't be doing and then finally realize that it was wrong and they set themselves on the right course and are a better person for it. She will be up first, followed by Zahyia Rolle. That's spelled Z-A-H-Y-I-A. And Zahyia is a musician as well as a promoter for music artists. Check out her website at silverarrowband.com and you'll get an idea of what she does. We talk about the industry and about how she's trying to change things and make things better, particularly for women in the industry. So stay tuned for that one in the second half of the show. Before we get to the interviews, I just want to tell people that I've got a horrible toothache. And with all the coronavirus stuff going around, it is not fun. I'm happy that I'm not sick. I'm obviously happy I don't have the coronavirus. But this was not a good time to get a toothache because although dentists are open, they're considered essential service, many of them are on a kind of a limited schedule because they don't want people piling up in the waiting room. So you have to book, and I'm having trouble just getting an appointment. So I'm thinking of doing the old cartoon way with this tooth. I have a feeling it's going to have to go. So I'm going to tie a string around it and do the doorknob and have somebody slam the door if I can't get to the dentist this week because it's incredibly painful. I've been doing my mouthwash with Scotch whiskey and Listerine and just trying not to take too many ibuprofens. Oh, we'll see. Wish me luck. Dentist, here I come. We will be right back with Jen Sugermeyer.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Jen Sugermeyer. Hey, Jen, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, thank you.
Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. So, I got to ask right off the bat, how are you doing with the virus situation? Are you stuck at home like many of us are?
I am stuck at home, but I think I stay busier now than I ever was because I've given myself a whole lot of aggressive goals. So kind of from sunup, from sundown, I'm busy working on something.
Well, you've got a book out, and you just told me before we got on that you're going to start a podcast, and you're going to actually do the ebook yourself in your own
The
voice?
Audible.
The
That's
Audible.
right.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Lots of projects.
Our show has been busier than it ever has been because I think for the same reason people are just stuck at home and they say, well, might as well do an interview since I got nothing else to do. I'm happy that we're so busy, but I'm not happy as to why we are so busy. This is a tragic situation, but, I suppose we just have to make the best of what life throws at us since it was really, everybody was caught off guard by this thing. And then now we've been sort of put into a tailspin.
I think there'll be a lot of good that comes out of it too. If we really just take a step back and use the time and try to optimize it, I think we're definitely going to see change that comes out of this, like with any big event. You look at 9/11 and some of the others. But, I do hope people are taking the time to really kind of self-reflect and just, enjoy time with their families or catch up on some projects and all that.
It's funny that your book is called Reset because that was exactly what I was going to say, that this is a reset moment in the history of mankind, where from this day forward, life will never be the same as it was. And I think this one even maybe more than 9/11. I mean, 9/11 was definitely a reset, but it was only a reset on certain fronts, like especially at the airport. We saw, okay, now all of this strict security went in, and that stayed. Before that, it wasn't as strict. So that was something that changed and will stay with us forever. From this, it's kind of hard to say because it's not over yet. The whole social distancing thing, I don't know if that'll go away. I kind of hope it does, but...
I'm a hugger, so I don't know what it's going to be like when I go back into the world and I go to try to hug people. Are they going to push me away?
Well, that's just it. I mean, I think people are going to be reluctant to shake hands anymore or hug or kiss or anything. And I mean, that's sad. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that, but I guess we'll just wait and see. So anyways, I was reading through your bio. It's very interesting. I think the best way to approach this is just, why don't you just tell us your story?
That's all right. All right. I'll try to do a high level, and there's a whole lot of content you can dig into. So, so what people saw from the outside was a very picturesque life that I was leading, and I was climbing the corporate ladder, and had done very well for myself, and I was really, kind of pushing some, the envelope for a lot of women in my industry. There weren't so many, and so I was just really, kind of pioneering, I guess. And people saw, I had a house and, a truck, and I was really, physically fit and all these kind of things. And so from the outside, I traveled, 49 countries. I've been all over. I had this really great life. But really behind the scenes, I was completely broken, and I was leading this double life, and it was taking over all of my joy and my happiness, and I couldn't get past it. And when I look back to when it started, I had no idea at the time, but it really started when I was 12. I'm not going to walk you through every, when I was, but when I had an eating disorder that started when I was 12, and that was my teenage years. And so I had learned to live this double life where I knew that it wasn't socially acceptable to kind of talk out loud about, some of the things that were going on. So I kept all those hidden. So unbeknownst to me, not only was I learning to be really good at leading a double life, but I was also triggering my reward system in my brain for these addictive behaviors. And when I got a handle on my my eating disorder, it just led from one addiction to another. I pick my head up when I'm in my mid-30s. I look in the mirror and I have no idea who that woman was staring back at me. And, and I was I mean, I was an alcoholic. I had no, and I was, blackout drunk. So every morning trying to piece things back together. I was in and out of jails and hospitals and running into the office. And I mean, it got very, very dark in my life. My self-respect, my self-esteem was completely trashed. And I was trying to hold it together. I was trying to hold together this life that everybody saw. That's the person I identified with. I was, kind. I was, all these things that, people gravitated towards. But this person that I had kept hidden, she was starting to win the battle. And for a long time, it was, maybe poor college drinking, or maybe it was, an eating disorder that wasn't great, but And slowly but surely, it just creeped into all areas of my life. I wasn't able to have close relationships. So many things. So, I was very suicidal by the time I finally tried to get sober for a decade, and nothing ever worked. And it was getting worse and worse. And I kept thinking, because I would travel a lot for work. And every time that plane, when there was turbulence, I was like, please, let's go down, because this is just going to be a much easier way to explain. That's going to be an easier phone call for my parents than, whatever I was conjuring up in my mind, otherwise, and with my suicidal thoughts. So, it was a mess. And I couldn't, it was just Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. And so that's kind of where my story all started, and that was how I wrote Reset, was when I hit the reset button on my life. So, fortunately, I've been able to move past that. But it took me a good decade of a lot of failed attempts, but grateful to be where I am today.
Let me back up to one thing. You said you were doing a lot of traveling, visited 49 countries. What was your job? What were you doing at that point?
I've had I've been in so many different fields. I was in IT for the last 15 years in some capacity, but I've done everything from private equity companies to publicly traded companies to contracting with the federal government.
Oh, okay.
And I worked for the airlines for a while. So I had flight benefits. So most of my traveling, the majority of it was on my own. And I took some time off after college, and I traveled around and all that. And I had married a gentleman for a brief stint in my life, and he had flight benefits. So I was able to travel the globe for about 5 or 6 years for pretty inexpensive. So between that and my jobs, I lived in Italy for a couple years. I worked in Afghanistan for a year. So I've just really had some unique opportunities, and they've been kind of all across the board. Interesting career path. When you were,
I don't want to say low, but when you were getting to the lower points of your life, you had mentioned alcoholism and in and out of jail, things like that. Were you on your own at that point, or were you with your husband, or was anybody trying to help you out, or were you all by yourself with all of this?
So I was mostly on my own, I think, because I've had, with my ex, actually, I think 2 of the times was with my ex. And then, so some yes, some no. I would say for the most part, I was on my own trying to figure all of these things out. But my ex was around for a couple of the stints.
Okay. Did you have any children at that point?
No,
okay.
And I still don't.
Oh, well, you know what? That's probably a blessing.
Yes.
Just quickly, because my father had a problem with alcohol, and he had that problem while I was quite young. I mean, I would have been 6 to 9, 10 years old. And the memories of him at that point are, really bad. And he wasn't abusive, but there was all kinds of weird stuff going on that when you're 6 to 7, 8 years old, you don't understand. You just don't understand what is wrong with your father. And, even now, I mean, he's been dead for over 30 years, and I'm 58 years old, and I still have those memories. It's like they're burned in. They'll never go away. So
yeah,
I think it was probably better that you didn't have children, because you could have taken them along with you, so to speak.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree.
So what was the reset? Did something happen? Did you have an epiphany? Did something...
I did.
Yeah? Tell us about that.
I had 7 words that were told to me, and it was, and even though, a lot of what should have been my aha moments never led me, they always led me to just solidify more in my brain that I needed to change things, but nothing ever stuck. And I had finally started to date a gentleman. I didn't like dating because I didn't have a good opinion of myself, and I had very low self-esteem, and I kept finding people that didn't value me. And, I went through physical abuse and mental abuse, and so it just, by the way, I'm divorced, but that wasn't my ex-husband. He was great. It just wasn't right. But I finally decided that I was ready to be in a relationship that, things were going to be different this time. I was going to have more self-esteem, and I was going to find someone that was better than some of these yahoos that were physically abusive to me and all this. And so I started dating this guy, and I really did think that he would fix me. And, I would just find this happiness, and I would just move past all of this. And, that's not really how that works. And about 4 months in, we sat down to have the talk. And he told me just 7 words. And these 7 words, they just stopped me dead in my tracks. And it just opened my whole world up. And he said, Jen, you need to learn to love yourself. And, I had issues bringing people close to me. I had a lot of friends. That wasn't it. I was always very social and outgoing. But I could let people only get so close to me because there was a lot of hurt that I had inside, a lot of pain that I was dealing with or not dealing with because I was self-medicating, right? There was a lot happening inside of me. And I had finally allowed a good person into my life. And although I tried to remain optimistic and, not let him see the dysfunction, he still saw that I just truly didn't love myself, and I didn't try to throw it all out there. But he saw enough to get that. And when he told me that, I just saw myself never living up to the life that I wanted to have, because I truly I was going, this person that I couldn't stand was winning this war inside of me. And it wasn't that I kept a life hidden. She was me. And I really did need to get in the mirror and get honest with myself and just learn to love myself. And it was the most profound 7 words. And it was his delivery as well. I think the stars aligned for me, and I just sat there and I thought about them, and it changed everything. And from that moment on, and I told him that I was committed to him and to us, and most importantly to myself, and that I was going to learn to love myself, and thus my journey began.
You brought up a great point about one needs to love themselves first before they can love somebody else. I've seen that in myself. I've seen that with many other people. Do you think it's easier for people to find fault with others than it is for them to find fault with themselves? Or do we just hide the fact that we find fault with ourselves?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I do think it's easy for us to point fingers and sort of and to say it's not my fault or and kind of play the victim. I certainly think that's, and I know I played the victim for a long time in my life. I'm like, well, it's not, poor pitiful me, having to deal with all these things. But I definitely, on the point of loving someone else, I think we tell ourselves that we can love someone else fully. And I really don't believe that unless we're in tune with ourselves and we truly love ourselves, then we can achieve to a certain level of love that we desire and that we crave.
How about if you fall in love with somebody else? then they can teach you to love yourself. Is that what happened with you?
No. In fact, I mean, I mentioned I was married, and I never knew love until I fell in love with myself first.
Okay.
And it's amazing now how I look at relationships so much differently. I believe so much more healthy, but it's not that you don't know or have some idea of what love is, but I had no idea until I fell in love with myself what love was. And I had been married, and I had dated, and thought I was maybe in love with some of these people, but looking back at it now to where I am in my life, it's not on the same level.
So you got to find it for yourself first before you
think so.
Before you can
I think
share
so.
it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that, when you're in a relationship, I mean, they may uncover things about you, or you may, that's not to say you have to be, you have to know every little facet about yourself. I think you find somebody that complements you in your life and your lifestyle. And sometimes they bring out things that you didn't even know about, so they can certainly enhance kind of maybe your understanding, or they expose you to new things and all that. But I think having that self-respect and that self-love going into a relationship is really going to help both you and the person in your life much more than kind of coming and not having that level of self-awareness, that self-love.
Well, I agree. I think that people need to have, to use an analogy of a house, the foundation has to be fairly solid. And then the two of you can build on it together.
Yeah.
But if the foundation's not there, the whole thing's just going to crumble.
Yep, I agree.
And I think the foundation is something that you come to the relationship with. You have to be fairly solid. The person you're getting into the relationship with has to be fairly solid. So, But you can learn together, and you can build things together. I mean, I've been married for 15 years, and I've learned a lot about myself in the last 15 years. Because I started late. I mean, I didn't get married until I was 43. And so I already thought that, I know how to deal with life. That was my attitude. And then when I got married, talk about a reset. I mean, that was just a full reset, because it was everything, right down to the nitty-gritty, little nitpicky, moving the toaster in the kitchen. I want the toaster over here. No, it's going to be over there. And just, it's amazing what two people can fight over. And then you sit there and you realize, after the dust settles, did we really just have a 20-minute fight over a stupid toaster? Was that what this was all about? And then you kind of laugh about it, and you don't have that experience when you're alone. And you learn, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You just don't have it. There's no reality for it. When you're alone, you put the toaster wherever you want. You wake up in the morning and it's still there.
That's right.
Unless the dog or the cat moves it in the night, it's still there. So, yeah, it's funny. But do you think people should wait to get involved in a relationship? Because, I mean, biologically, humans are ready to go when they're in high school. And, I mean, my grandparents were married when they were in their teens. And that was perfectly normal for 1920s, And they lived together and were married for 60 some odd years and died a year apart. But these days, I don't know that I would want, I don't have any children, but I wouldn't necessarily want them to be getting married when they're 17, 18 years old. I think it's too young. What do you think?
No, I agree with that. And I think everyone wants what your grandparents had. And I think that's the most beautiful, story that you can give. But, the reality is it's a whole nother world. And with technology and all the different influences that we have and we can be talking to 25 people at the same time and checking mail and reading the news and doing Snapchat and on Instagram. I mean, it's unbelievable how many different things we can be doing at the same time. And I don't know, I wasn't around when your grandparents, were growing up, but I think the world maybe was a little bit different place. And it's actually probably very similar to what we're experiencing now, in the sense that, they probably stayed home and maybe were playing more games with their family and things like that. But there's so many different things that we have in the world and different options,
Right.
I mean, if you look back at, especially women, like, well, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to raise the kids. That's what you're going to do. And then it was like, okay, well, you could do that. You could be a teacher or a nurse, and now it's like, you could do whatever so it's just a different world that we live in, different rights, different expectations, different, entertainment, different, all that. And I think, the more, for me, I looked and I just looked at my life, and it was like, I moved here, I moved there, I was, in a relationship, and then I was out, and then I, this and that and the other. And it was like life just like piled on me. And I think, people at that time certainly had things that they were dealing with, but we've just got a lot going on. And so I don't know that getting into a relationship, not that it couldn't, I'm sure that there are success stories of people at 18, 19 today getting in relationships and them lasting. But I really do think that having that, living a little bit, experiencing, life and understanding yourself and having that good foundation, like you talk about, I think that's really critical. I mean, if you look at the divorce rate today, it's just really high. And so I think we've got to take a look at that and say, well, why is it so high? What might be missing in that? Be an interesting case.
Certainly the world has changed in the last 100 years. And technology, like you said, I think even in the last, from the onset of the internet, there has been another explosion. I mean, if you look at what changed at the turn of the century, when they got electricity, telephones, cars, factories, okay, that was a huge change for society. 20 years before that, they were riding horses and burning candles. Now, we had another explosion with the tech boom where, like you said, we can be talking to 50 people all over the world. The whole world is connected through these little computer things that we have. And there's just an infinite number of choices for people to make on what they want to do with their life. When my grandparents got married, like you said, especially with women, there was no option about her going to work. She knew that she got married to my grandfather. It was his job to go work and make the money. She's going to stay home and take care of the house and take care of the children and cook and clean. And that was her job. And that's what she did for her entire life. By the same token, I never saw him ever wash a dish, ever. But the roles were defined. Life was black and white. This is your job. This is my job. Well, kids today, women can do anything men can do. And are encouraged to do so and should do so. With so many choices, I think brings on a certain level of chaos amongst mankind. And I think we're seeing that to a certain degree. What do you think about that? Do you think too much choice is not necessarily a good thing for people?
I don't like to go to IHOP because there's like 400 options on the menu, and it's like I get a little lost. But if you just asked me if I wanted like pancakes, I'd be like, yes, I want pancakes. But I spend like 25 minutes like reading this thing when I really only wanted pancakes anyways. I do. I think I think too many choices can be overwhelming. I think it's liberating at the same time, but it certainly adds, there's just more like, I don't know, what do I want to be when I grow up? I don't know, maybe an astronaut, maybe the president, it's good. It's good. It's not that it's a bad thing, but it can be overwhelming just to think and to navigate. And sometimes you start going down a path and that's not necessarily it. And well, do I want to do the rest of my career, in this field? All right, I'm going to make a change, and so it's just a lot of things that start going through your head because of different. So they're good. It's not that they're bad, but it certainly adds more to your plate.
The only argument I have about too much technology, too many choices, is that if you make the wrong choices, if you go down, let's use the analogy of a fork in the road, except instead of a fork, there's like 6 different ways you can go instead of just 2. And let's say you pick one and it's not quite right, so you got to come back and start over and go to the next one and the next one. Life is finite. We only have a certain number of years on this planet. And the problem is with so many choices, if you make the wrong choices enough times, you don't have any more time to get it right. And I think some people have been stuck into that situation where they live in a pool of regret that, oh, I did this, but then that wasn't right, so then I did that, and then I did that, and now I'm 70 years old and I can't do anything. And I think that's unfortunate. Whereas if there was only one choice, they would have done that. They would have stuck with it. That's it, good or bad. Do you know what I'm saying?
There's a lot of things in my life that I could have looked back and regret. I've made a lot of decisions and that I shouldn't have, that may or may not have been within my control. And and I look at those and they all built me into who I am today. And I'm like, when you were asking about my career path, I mean, I've kind of been all over the place, and I've recently made a shift into within the last year, life coaching and motivational speaking and whatever, writing, and I think. All of those were building blocks. So if we get stuck in our mind that, kind of woe is me, I'm real big on perspective, and yeah, we are all going to come to the end of our road. And I think it would be easier if we had just one choice, but if we keep that positive perspective that we're doing the right thing and we're continuing to improve ourselves and self-reflecting and finding things that make us happy, then we can look back with enjoyment and all these, these maybe landmines that kind of got us along the way and what we can learn from them as life lessons. That's really where we grow as people. I feel sorry for people that kind of think, woe is me, because that's a lonely place to be. I think we can shift that around. I mean, yeah, I kind of wanted to be a singer. There are a few things I'm like, I probably, maybe, but that door closed. But that's okay. I'm really happy with where I'm at now, and just finding gratitude in those kinds of things. So yeah.
You're right about living in regret. There's no benefit to that. I just think that some people perhaps got overwhelmed. I guess that was my point.
Yeah.
They got overwhelmed with so many choices, and, they picked the wrong ones, and then, their life sort of slipped by, and now they're in this spot where, it's like, oh my God, I should have went this way or should have went that way. The funny thing, and maybe it's not funny, but interesting, is that there's an age cutoff for technology. Now, not everybody. I know people that are 85 years old that are on the computer all the time. But I know more people in that age group that don't even have a computer because they just can't deal with it, and they find it completely unnecessary for their life. Then you compare that to somebody who's 20 or 30 who would go absolutely ballistically crazy if they didn't have their phone in their hand at all time.
Yeah.
I know people who sleep with their phone. Do you sleep with your phone?
It's next to my bed because it's my
Close enough.
It's my alarm clock too.
Yeah. See, it's become everything.
I don't have a house. Yeah, I don't have a house phone. I don't have an alarm clock. Like it's my one-stop shop right there. So it is next to my bed.
Well, see, that's the same with me. It's my alarm clock as well. I can roll over and then check the news or check my bank account. whatever I want to do. It's right there in the palm of my hand. And I think it's great. But if you try to explain that to somebody who just didn't grow up with it, they just have no concept of it. And so perhaps that's good for them because it's one less thing they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had this conversation with other people, and it's always a good conversation because there isn't a particularly right answer. It's an opinion-based answer. Do you think that too much choice and too much technology is good, bad, or indifferent? And I suppose my sort of summation of it, or my opinion of it, is that it's a double-edged sword. It can be overwhelming, but if it's used in its perspective, then it can be okay. And trying to segue this into your reset is that now with the virus, people have to stay home. People have to look at each other, the family members. I'm thinking of the younger family that has little kids that are now home from school 24 hours. And maybe the parents are going out of their minds because they don't know how to keep these kids entertained all day. But that's a good thing because now they're going to learn something. The parents are going to learn from the kids. Okay, what are we going to do to keep these kids entertained? We can't keep them on, the Xbox all day. So we're going to have to play games like card games or board games or create crafts or do anything like that. Yeah. And I think that's good. I think that is a positive side of this because we are kind of all wrapped up in our little technological cocoon. And sometimes I think we could do with a break of it, There's somebody out there that's saying that everybody should shut their phone off for 3 hours a day. And I read that would be good. Yeah, like for therapy. For therapy purposes. Just shut your phone off for 3 hours a day. And I could see some people just biting their fingernails, watching the clock on the wall going, oh God, is it 3 hours yet?
Yeah. Some people that's their, that's an extension of them. Yeah. Everything happens there. Yeah.
Jen, we got to wrap this up. Thanks so much. Your book is called Reset, 5 Steps to Reclaim the Life You Thought You Lost and Learn to Love Yourself. My guest is Jen Sugermeyer. Tell us your website where people can find you and find the book.
So as long as you spell it right, I'm the one, the only Jen Sugermeyer. So it's jensugermeyer.com. That's sugar with an E. And there's actually a freebie that's out there now on reconnecting with yourself. So using this time, it would be good to just to reconnect with yourself. So you can go out to jensugermeyer.com, and my book is out there as well. So it's the hub of all the information.
Thanks so much for coming on. This was a great conversation. I enjoyed speaking with you.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Hi, this is John Morgan, production supervisor for DJC Productions. You're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
Okay, please welcome to The Douglas Coleman Show, Zahyia Rolle. Hey, Zahyia, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. I got to ask you the obligatory question that I've been asking all the guests who have been on in the last few weeks. How are you doing with the virus situation? Are you staying at home? What's going on in your life with that?
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. Every moment it's a new wave of emotions. So right now, I'm fortunate enough to have my family that I'm kind of quarantined off with. So the extrovert of me is slightly happy, but not. I'm also just love people's faces. So not being able to get out and see people is just not my thing.
Where do you live?
I'm in Rochester, New York.
Okay. So, I don't know, yeah. Rochester probably is not as bad as New York City, but I think the whole state's been pretty bad, yeah?
Yeah. It's definitely not, we're not seeing the extreme in the cases, but it's definitely something that we're concerned about. I mean, compared to the amount of people in Monroe County, our numbers are still not looking good. So we're all just, hunkering down and hoping that this passes as soon as possible.
Yeah. Every state has sort of different lockdown requirements and things. What is it in New York now? You're just not allowed to go out at all unless you got to buy food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, only to buy food. We're pretty much no gatherings even outside of 10 or more. Most of the stores have a policy now where no more than 100 customers can be in the store at a time. So there's like, it's very strange. It's like Home Depot. It's still open because it's considered essential, but only 100 customers are allowed in. And basically there's like a line of people that are waiting outside 6 feet apart to get in to the store.
Wow.
A very surreal experience.
I think for me, I think if I had to wait in line for hours to get into the store, I would be more upset that by the time I got there, they would be out of everything that I wanted to buy.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it just makes online shopping more attractive.
Oh, God, yes. Sure. Yeah, I mean, the few things that I've needed over the last few weeks, you know, UPS has brought them, so I'm very happy. Well, I'm glad you're okay, your family's okay, you're safe, and it seems like, from what I'm reading on your bio, that I think a lot of work that you do, you could do from home, yeah? And mostly internet work?
Yeah, for the most part. With a lot of the work that I do for musicians, it's definitely all online, mostly emailing, communicating with potential clients and current clients. So that part's been really a blessing. But outside of that, the gig life, the actual performance aspect of it, that was hit hard. And we're pretty much, you know.
Yeah, that's shut down pretty much at this point, unless you're doing online concert, which a lot of people are starting to do now. I've seen some of those YouTube specials and different things where people are just sort of streaming a performance from their living room or something, which is cool. I think that's fine.
Yeah, I actually did my first one last night. But definitely I'm the one who prefers the live experience, just on stage with musicians. It's just way more my vibe.
Oh, yeah. The one thing you miss by streaming is you don't get the audience reaction.
Right.
It's like performing in an empty theater. You know,
right. Yeah, and still trying to keep your energy up.
And still try to keep right, you know, when the people are screaming and applauding and stuff, that's your energy boost. But if there's no one there, it can be a little disheartening. Right. I want to say that I'm very happy to read your bio and to hear what you're doing. I'm also a musician, have been for many, many years. And one of my biggest beefs about the status of the music industry these days, I suspect I'm a good deal older than you are, kind of gone through the whole thing where long before the internet, people actually went out and performed, and then people actually bought recorded music in large numbers, and musicians could make a good living selling albums. Those days, I think, are pretty much gone. And now musicians who perform, the bulk of their money is made from live performances. And then ironically, people buy the CD at the concert, which I always found funny. They won't buy it at Amazon, you know, but when they're there at your performance, they'll pick it up outside in the lobby.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I've always disliked is the streaming for a penny, because the numbers just don't add up. If you put a song out on the internet and you charge $1 for the download, that's fine, because that's about what you would pay for an album if you had 10 or 12 songs, okay? But 1 penny for a stream, I mean, even my most favorite song in the whole world, I doubt I've played it 100 times.
Right.
So it just, the numbers don't add up economically for artists, and I think artists are really getting screwed. The argument, the counter argument is that, well, you just need that much more audience, and the internet provides it. But I don't know, I haven't seen that for the majority of artists. So I wanted to get your take on that, and then also just tell us what exactly you're doing to maximize the money going into the artist's pocket.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with you 1,000%. It's just the imbalance that exists right now is quite absurd. I think the biggest issue also that I have is just that even to draw people in, especially like let's just speaking from the original music perspective, like you were saying back in the day, people naturally wanted to go out and see live music. I also feel like the open-mindedness towards music was there. Right now, it's easy for people to kind of go into their little music bubbles and not experience things outside of their music bubble, which causes a problem because then the familiar is a huge issue. So for an artist, it's if you're not following a specific format and you're just really truly creating from your personal experience and just an eclectic background of genres, then it ends up turning into this thing where people don't know where to place you, and then they often don't go back. Like they might listen to maybe one song and stream that, a few times or add it to a playlist, but then for them to actually come back and listen more, that's also an issue. So, when you had a live setting that was more popular, it was easy to kind of present the new material. People have that energy that's surrounding the whole atmosphere and the environment of the show. And, you could really present and bring different original tunes into that type of setting. And you can't, it's just very difficult to do that online. So, that's to add to what you're saying, that's, something that has always kind of concerned me. And yeah, from that perspective too, just, in order for a musician to actually view themselves as having a career in this, because that's, also something that I just feel music shouldn't be looked at as a side hobby or this, this thing that, I am an engineer, but I am a weekend warrior and I do this stuff on the side. I really do believe that a decision to be a musician, it's a career decision, and we should have that as a respected industry and a respected field for providing for our families. So basically what I do is I'm really grateful. I've been blessed to be a part of the International Musicians League, which is basically a worldwide organization that has taken the whole concept of booking artists, which historically a lot of the money for booking it always goes into the hands of the agents and those who are doing the booking, and then the percentage to the musicians is a lot less. So this organization has flipped it. So I do a lot of booking work for musicians, but the money goes right to the musicians, and I don't take as much for that. So there's, the people who are actually on the front lines and actually pulling in the, repeated business or anything like that. The musicians themselves are the ones who are actually able to receive what they deserve, because they're on the front lines, in my opinion.
Oh, well, that's great. I think that's super.
Yeah. What we do, and Silver Arrow Band is the band specifically that I book, and we do mostly corporate events and weddings. And then that is something that, because there is really a formula with weddings. Once you understand what keeps people happy and people on the dance floor, you've got that in your pocket. And then that frees musicians, if they're able to do something like that to help provide for their household, then, there's more time for them to actually focus on their craft and their artistry. And really that's like my main motivation for continuing to do this work with Silver Arrow.
Got to ask you about weddings, since you brought that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I was performing, now this is going back to the early 1980s, and I was in New York City at the time, I didn't like doing weddings, but occasionally our band would do a wedding simply because the money was so much better. When we would play clubs, which we loved to play, I mean, we got about $20 a night for playing for 4 hours. Okay. And that was even bad money back then. I mean, You think about it now, that's just like
Right.
zero. But even back then, it wasn't very much. But if we did a wedding, we could each get 100, 125 or something for playing just a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Plus, nobody was paying attention to you anyway, so you could kind of, if you goofed, it didn't matter. You got free, great food. And, it was just like a better environment, But we didn't like doing weddings so much because that was the downside, was that nobody was really paying attention. And you didn't get that sort of feedback you were just a human jukebox. My long-winded question here is, what are they paying for weddings these days? Because I thought the karaoke machine and the DJ kind of replaced the live band. So people actually still want live bands at their wedding, yeah?
Yeah, it's interesting because, even within the clients, the potential bride and grooms themselves, they'll often debate of whether they're going to go band DJ. One of the things that I think might be a factor is definitely like the status symbol of having a band. And that's actually more so, I think, with the parents than the brides and grooms themselves, where it's like this economic, well-to-do, we're able to provide our sons and daughters with this band for their big day. So there's that. I also have a lot of clients who are educators, and that's something that speaks to them because they are in education and they're familiar with what it takes to actually be a musician and how many musicians are involved in this industry trying to maintain themselves financially. So I think that they really appreciate that and are more likely to want to book a band. One thing that we do with Silver Arrows, we also do DJ during our breaks, so to speak. So we'll say, hey, you get the live band, but you can also have a bit of DJing in between. I can say that for a majority of our musicians, I think I would say probably about 90% of them are full-time musicians. Like either 85 to 90% of them are able to provide for themselves by doing this, in addition to studio work that they do and any composition gigs that they have. So yeah, it's been working so far for our guys.
So do you want to give out a price or no? Like what would be?
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, the actual price. I say, most musicians, we hire them at about $300 to $400 per wedding.
$300 to $400 per wedding, and that's per band member.
Per band member.
Oh, well, that's not bad. Typically, you would play for how long?
It's usually a 5-hour time slot, and then there's additional compensation for them if they're able to do ceremonies, because that's a whole other skill and talent in itself. If you're able to do solo, provide solo music, whether it's classical or jazz, then we have more compensation. We're able to provide for our musicians with that. So that usually ends up being about a 6 to 7 hour commitment if they're going from the beginning of ceremony all the way through to the end of the reception.
I would expect that to hire a full live band would be more expensive than a DJ, or certainly than a karaoke machine. So your thing about status symbol, I suppose that's valid. That people say, well, I can afford to have a live band. As a matter of fact, one wedding I went to years and years ago, these people were really very wealthy. And they hired Ray Charles to play at their daughter's wedding, which I thought was amazing because we didn't know. He sort of left it as a surprise. It said, on the wedding invitation, it said blah, 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 with a surprise musical guest. So we had no idea who was going to be there. And all of a sudden they announced, and here he is, Mr. Ray Charles. And he comes out on stage, escorted out and sits at his piano and he played. And I was like, oh my God. So that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at least with the weddings that I've been doing, one of the main thing that helps us keep this going is that the musicians, people who are attending the weddings that have live bands, they notice the difference between having a live band and having a DJ, because they're all still going to weddings with DJs at them, and they see how much energy the live band can bring and how much easier it is to pull in different demographics and different age groups of all their guests that are attending. So I think that that's a huge factor that's also kind of sustaining us. And again, that goes back to the musicians. The musicians are the ones who are out there presenting for the the band. They're the ones who are putting their heart into this to create an atmosphere for our clients and their guests, so that they can come back and say, hey, this was amazing. Oh my gosh, my sister's getting married. Let's have a band at their wedding too. And so hopefully it's something that's like contagious, I guess, and will keep affecting other people to realize the importance of that energy and camaraderie that exists between musicians on stage.
So is what you're doing primarily booking for gigs, or are you doing promotion online for artists as well?
I'm mostly booking, although I've just taken a personal interest in assisting in promotion work for musicians that I know are doing their original music, and just helping any way that I can to get their stuff out there as well. It's also something that means a lot to me. I as much as I exist in this cover band world with the corporate events and weddings, my heart and desire is to see original artists be able to express themselves and have their voices be heard, and for people to learn to love and appreciate different stories as they're being expressed through the art. So I do a lot of promotion. There's probably about 5 or 6 artists specifically that I've just made a vested interest in making sure that I can assist them any way I can with promotions or creating events where I can pull people together for multiple voices to be heard within a setting, especially women, I will say, men too, because I got a couple of guys I'm really gunning for, but also women, because it's another area where I just am really trying to be an advocate for having women to seen in a role of more leadership rather than a role where they're a lead vocalist, but they had nothing to do with the creations of the songs or nothing to do with directing how they want to be presented. Things like that personally I experienced as an original artist in the music industry for years, where people kind of directed where I was supposed to go. And so it's important to me to help change that narrative and help change independent artists, especially women, who are willing to share and present their stories and want to, but haven't been allowed that space. So I really do make an effort to do things with that too.
It is kind of ironic when you think about it that the music industry, although there are many women, like you said, who have been lead vocalists, and there have been some, what they call girl groups, it's still a very male-dominated industry. And it covers all genres, because you think about any genre that has a band, they might have a woman singer, but it's rare that they have a woman player, guitar player, drummer, bass player, It's still, mostly men. And I don't know. I don't think it's changed all that much from years and years.
Yeah, it really hasn't. I think the only place that I see it shifting is maybe in the singer-songwriter atmosphere.
Okay.
But again, that's the thing that I think also is disturbing to me, is that with these, and this is really something I think is a problem of all culturally, no matter where your background is. I feel like culturally, people have these ideas of what your label is, and if your label is this, then you would fall into this. Like, people can accept you if you're in this genre, or people can accept you if you present yourself this way. And so I feel like when it comes to women, it's very easy for people to accept a woman if she's, in a singer-songwriter type mode and she's got her guitar and she's, playing her sad songs about a breakup. It's easy for people to accept that. But if you take a woman, like I like to use the example of Janelle Monáe a lot, where she writes her own music, she produces everything, she plays like 3 different instruments, and she's, in my opinion, she's just amazing artist. But when she first came out, she did like, her music was very eclectic. It was like, she had things that sounded Simon and Garfunkel-esque, and then she had stuff that was straight like Stevie Wonder funk, and just very eclectic. And she wasn't getting a lot of play, a lot of mainstream push. But the minute that she came out with her later stuff, where she took off her clothes and she was like more in the R&B vibe, then they're like, oh, I get it now. Black woman, R&B, naked. Yeah, I'll buy that. Like it's like why is it that we have this, this issue with the label and what we expect, because we've been fed these images for so long, and how, that we can only see anything moving forward in that way. So I might be going on a tangent here. Sorry.
That's
like
right.
one of my personal soapboxes. And so I really want to push people who, I really want to help promote people who are like expressing themselves and presenting a different narrative than what we're used to, that can defy, this pushes those labels away.
Well, I agree with you completely. I mean, I think music, particularly music, should be free expression for everybody. And the idea that you have to pigeonhole somebody because of their gender, I think it's wrong. You remember Tracy Chapman? She came out years ago with that song Fast Cars.
Yeah, love her.
Yeah, fantastic. But I couldn't imagine her doing anything but that kind of music that she does. But if somebody were to say, well, look, why don't you take off your clothes and do R&B, I mean, she would have been horrible for that, But,
right.
But, for what she did, she was brilliant, And so I think leave people, there's a great example of this too. And then we got to kind of wrap it up. The group Heart?
Yeah. Yep.
When they first started out, they were like, and I remember them because I was in high school when they had their first album. They were like these 2 hippie chicks. They both, were just incredible music. They wrote their own stuff. People went, wow, this is great. And they gathered a whole group of loyal followers. After I think it was their 3rd album, might have been their 4th, they got a major deal and lots and lots of money, millions of dollars. But the record company changed their whole image, like you said. Their clothes started getting a little more skimpy. And then they had songwriters come in to write songs for them. And they lost that whole fan base that they had when they were writing their great rock and roll stuff. I remember just when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's it. And I stopped paying attention to them because I loved what they were doing, to start out with. Finally, after they made their millions, they came back to doing their own music. And they're still out there. Every once in a while, I see them pop up somewhere. And I've watched concerts that they've done more recently on YouTube, and they're doing all their old stuff, and it's great. So, I mean,
nice.
The whole thing about selling out or whatever, okay, but at least they came back. They made their money so that, so they didn't have to answer to anybody. And then they came back to doing what they're good at and what they love doing. So, okay, I can accept that. We all got to make a living, Yeah. But you're right. I mean, as soon as they got into the hands of the record labels, their image completely changed, and much to the disapproval of their loyal fans who started out with them.
I'd honestly love to believe that it doesn't have to be that way. And I do think there are some examples where it hasn't been like that. But I'd like to see it more.
Well, there should be, and I hope it continues to be better, where people are taken for what they do, not for what they can become or what they can be made to be. Unfortunately, from my perspective, where the music is getting less and less personal, in other words, more computer generated, then it's even, I think, more imperative for the record labels to put something in the front of that, scantily clad, if you will, and gyrating and dancing around, because the music almost is insignificant at that point.
Yeah.
And that's too bad because that really is going counter to, what we're talking about.
Right.
So keep doing what you're doing, because at least, I think what you're doing is you're promoting real music and real artists actually creating music. Once the computer creates too much music, the soul's gone. And when the soul's gone, it doesn't have any effect on me. It could be just, it's like that music that they used to have on the Nintendo soundtrack for Super Mario or something. It just leaves you kind of cold. But
absolutely.
If I hear Aretha Franklin or somebody singing, it just sends shivers up my spine. So it's a whole different, whole different thing. We do have to wrap it up. I'm sorry I'm rambling on here and going over. Please give out your website so people can check you out.
Sure. Yeah, I'm actually going to, if I can, direct people towards my original music website.
Okay.
It's vanishingsun.com, where we have that's more like my original music vibe or things like that. Or for the corporate and wedding stuff, it's silverarrowband.com. silverarrowband.com.
silverarrowband.com.
Or follow me, or I'm on Instagram. It's just Zahyia doing, ZA.hi.yadoing. That's my Instagram handle.
All right. That's super. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This was a lot of fun talking with you. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care.
To the mile, you've got to run, not walk. Give us something, you've got to breathe.